Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. Today I'm giving you my first impressions of the SM10b Sky Legends set. It's a mini set from Japan that's going to make up part of our unified mindset for Worlds. So I'm sure a lot of people are already having that on their radar. Season is kind of winding down. There's still obviously the NAIC and a couple of regionals to go, but Worlds is just around the corner. And as Unified Mind starts leaking from the Japanese set, I thought it'd be a good time to get my first look at this little 54 card mini set from Japan, just to give us a bit of insight into what cards we can start to expect as Worlds comes around. Now, bear in mind, Worlds is also having a set rotation, so I'm not giving you my full thoughts on rotation in this video. I'm still waiting for the entirety of Unified Minds to come out, because I don't want to start saying we lose this card, that card, and these decks will get worse or better, because there may be some pseudo replacements or just complete reprints of cards from Unified Minds that will change my decisions on what survives and what goes. So don't ask me questions yet about rotation until we have the full Unified Minds set. For now, I'll just be looking over Sky Legend and give you my first thoughts on these. I've given them the once over, given them all a quick look, so we can cherry pick the best cards from this set. And thanks to Limitless TCG, by the way, for collating this data. And I know David does a good job of getting these translations out faster than anyone else. So we'll start off with the trainer cards as per usual, because I always like to have a good grip on what we have playable in this set. Quick note that we have 4 reprint trainer cards, but they do all come with that little A in the bottom corner. You may notice it. But we have Nespal, Gladion, Lily, and Lusamine getting some alternate artwork, which is all pretty cool. But we start off with 3 tool cards in this set. First of all, 2 Z Crystal cards. So Normalium Z Tackle is a tool which says the Pokemon this card is attached to, as long as it has the Tackle attack, can also use this GX attack. So think of like a G-Booster or a Power Memory from Zygarde EX way back when. And this essentially opens up an extra attacking option for you if you have exactly Tackle on the card that this is attached to. So you open up the Dash Attack GX option for 4 colorless. You do 200 and you flip until you get tails. You do 40 more for each heads. Pretty decent raw damage output. 200 for 4 is a baseline that's kind of okay. We're hoping that we could have some energy acceleration for this. There aren't many Stage 1 Pokemon that have the Tackle attack, which is annoying because triple acceleration energy would really help the cost of this. So really we're looking at the Pokemon that have Tackle that also have energy acceleration involved. So a few things that I just quickly looked up on PTCGO was there's a couple Magnemites which have Tackle, and obviously the Magnezones can have energy acceleration. Also there's the Powerful Friends Heracross, which is usually paired with Venusaur. And the Venusaur has Jungle Totem, so 2 Grass Energy would account for Dash Attack GX. I think those are the ones that stood out to me as the most promising Pokemon that have the Tackle attack in them. There's also Coughing from this set, which has Tackle. So if we do have Energy Acceleration and Wheezing remains popular, obviously we lose DCE currently. So if DCE is gone, this Dash Attack is pretty limited in what it can be used for. But it's a nice, pretty cool tool card to sort of look back at some previous cards and be like, just having this Tackle text actually matters now. Flying Z Crystal, the Air Slash tool, is very similar. It just says that if the Pokemon has the Air Slash attack on it, it can also use its GX attack, and it has the Dive Crash GX attack for 180, and during your opponent's next turn, prevent all effects and damage from attacks done to this Pokemon. So it reads very similarly to Jolteon GX's Swift Run attack, but with higher base damage output, obviously 180 being good numbers to hit. It's not like you can choice ban on top of this, because this is a tool card, but nonetheless, 180 is a good baseline for knocking out things like the Dene GX. So that's pretty cool. Again, that 4 colorless attack cost is a little awkward. This, however, can use triple acceleration energy, because a Pokemon that does have Air Slash is Silvally, the one that we get from the set that's right there. So we'll be going over that in a moment, but I typed in Air Slash into PTCGO and no other Pokemon came up. So I think this is even more limited than the Tackle one, because I don't think there's many Pokemon at all that have Air Slash as an attack name. So this might be even more specific. It might currently only be for Silvally, maybe a couple other random flying types here and there. we'll keep our eye out for the air/attack. It's just one of those things you have to bear in mind for future Pokemon. The final tool we get is U-Turn Board. It says that you have 1 less retreat cost when you attach this, and when this card gets discarded from play, return it to your hand. And this is really, really relevant text. It means that if you have a Pokemon that's got this on and gets knocked out, you get the U-Turn Board back into hand. And also, if it gets field lowered, it basically does nothing. You get it back straight into your hand. So it would do something if you were item locked, for example, or if you weren't able to put tools into play for whatever reason. But, I mean, yeah, this is really powerful. It compares to a skateboard pretty favorably. I think you would use the U-Turn Board in every situation, unless you were a Jirachi. Like, you want to have a skateboard for Jirachi because you can get around sleep and paralysis, obviously. So for every other deck trying to reduce their retreat cost, U-Turn Board is stronger. So as long as you're not playing Jirachi, U-Turn Board is phenomenal. So yeah, very powerful tool card to help reduce retreat cost, which is nice. We then gain 2 supporters from this set. The Pokemaniac is a very quirky supporter that says, search your deck for 3 Pokemon that have a retreat cost of exactly 4, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Now, the way I'm reading this is they all individually have to be Pokemon with a retreat cost of 4. I saw a couple of people speculating that it was like 3 Pokemon that add up to a retreat cost of 4. That doesn't sound right in my eyes. It'd be a much meta card if that was the case, but I think it's only picking out cards with a retreat cost of exactly 4. That's the way I'm reading it, at least. And right now, again, did a quick PTCGO search, had a quick browse through this set and GG End, what we've seen so far. I think GG End actually has no Pokemon with a 4 retreat cost at all. And I think this set only has like a Licky Tongue and a Licky Licky that could take advantage of this Pokemaniac, which is quite fitting for the quirky nature of this archetype. But yeah, I mean, it's some chunky Pokemon that you're trying to scout out with this. And outside of some tag team Pokemon that I'm seeing, like Magikarp and Warlord, there's Eevee and Snorlax, there's Celosaur. There's a few tag teams that you can do it with, but, you know, we've got the new Cherish Ball from Unified Minds, so if you're trying to find GX Pokemon, Pokemaniac's probably not going to be the best guy, and then we have all these like useless Stage 2s that just happen to be chunky, like Alolan Golem and regular Golem and like Agrons and stuff, and no one really wants to search those guys out, so Pokemaniac will sort of come into our set and not really do much, but he'll be one of those things that's lying in wait for a time where there's a random Pokemon with a high retreat cost that's just good enough to be played anyway, and then Pokemaniac starts becoming insane, so something to bear in mind. This card really reminds me of the Winona supporter that we had way back when that allowed you to get 3 normal Pokemon. Like, Winona was very strong in a vacuum, it's just there was no targets for her to be used, and then she never saw play. And Pokemaniac's in a similar boat, where, like, the effect is amazing search, but it's so specific that we just have to wait for a moment for him to be good, and maybe there won't ever be a moment for him. Currently, I don't think there is, for sure. Jesse and James is a supporter, which is a symmetrical effect. Both players discard 2 cards from their hand. Your opponent discards first. And if you know anything about Let Loose, you know that symmetry does not mean like fair at all. And forcing the opponent to discard in the right times can be very detrimental. It's a really awkward effect. I think this is a nice Lusamine-able option. Remember, Lusamine was first printed in a set that rotates, but it's also got that reprint Lusamine in Ultra Prism, I think. So it does stay. So this is another Lusamine-able supporter card. It kind of overtakes the Team Skullgrunt that's rotating in those decks for being a discard option to lower the opponent's hand. And also, it may not even just be limited to Lusamine. Like, I mean, there are those situations where your opponent just has a low hand size, and similar to Delinquent at the right times, Jesse and James in a similar boat could just be very detrimental for the opponent. You can catch people off guard with a low hand size and just completely wreck them with Jesse and James. So I think this does have some fear factor to it. Obviously, it's not a consistency card, but for disruption, you know, we've seen worse cards do disruption, and this is very strong. And you can also think about the Reset Stamp plus Jesse and James combos that people are going to try out, similar to the Reset Stamp Unfair GX combos that people are going to try. I mean, this is just another way that you can completely wreck someone's hand if they go too far ahead and don't have a draw engine to back themselves up. So, pretty powerful disruption supporter there. The one stadium we get from the set is Blizzard Town, a really strange one. I still haven't quite got my head around the uses of this supporter. Oh, sorry, the stadium. and it says, Pokemon with 40 or less remaining hit points can't attack. I think this is the least relevant text on a stadium I've possibly ever seen. Don't really know what the plan is here. Like, sure, you can shut down some stuff trying to use Hustle Belt. Like, you can shut down some, like, Magikarps attacking you. There are obviously those moments where you can't knock something out, but you put something in range and then they can't attack. Like, maybe there's, like, a Wheezing deck or something where you're just putting spread all over the place and you want to keep them on the board, but not attacking you. So Blizzard Town comes in to do that. So, I mean, it just sounds terrible. It sounds way too cute. I'd rather be taking knockouts, and this stadium doesn't help you get set up or help you reach knockouts. So I think this is one of the worst stadiums I've ever seen, to be honest. I think it's really poor. But it's so unique and strange that I have nothing to compare it to. So maybe it's one of those stadiums that I have to play around with to figure out that it's secretly busted. Recycle Energy, however, is a nice reprint from way back when. I think it was Neo Genesis when this first came out. Recycle Energy provides colorless. If this card is put into your discard pile from play, return it to your hand. Now, from play means on the board, right? So it's not like you can use a trade and show your opponent a recycle and just keep it in your hand, like a propagation. It's when you attach to retreat, you then get the recycle energy back into hand rather than discard pile. And again, it's like if you were to have to discard an energy for your attack cost, for example, like, well, there's all sorts of examples, but you can just discard this energy and then instead of it going to the discard, you get it straight back to hand. Or if you just, if you get knocked out and this would go to the discard pile, it then comes back to your hand. So this is a really strong special energy card. Obviously only provides one colorless, so there's those situations where you can only use this if you have some element of colorless in your attack cost. It may end up just being a 1 or 2 of index, but it gets a lot of value, trust me. Like, I've played with this card before and it's been really, really good to use. You can basically do stuff for no payment, which is always really good. Or it's like a down payment and then you get it back later on, which is pretty cool. Onto the Pokemon. There aren't a huge amount that really inspire me from this set. There is some interesting stuff going on, and remember, this is just a small mini set, so it's just one little, like, 1/3, not even 1/3, it's like a quarter of the cards that we'll be getting in our Unified Mind set, so just bear that in mind. But we start off with a Grass tag team in Rowlet and a Alolan Exeggutor GX, a very unlikely pair, but very cool to see. It's a 270 hit point tag team basic with Fire Weakness. Now, immediately, my eyes are rolling, because this card has to be insane to compete with any of the fire stuff. Fire is just going to stay good throughout this next year, like, at least, just because of Welder alone. So, yeah, this really has to be an overly impressive card to see any play. It has the Super Grow attack for no energy. You get to search your deck for a card that evolves from one of your grass Pokemon and put it onto that Pokemon. If you searched out stage 1, you can search your deck for the card that evolves from that Pokemon and put it onto the next one. So here's the example. You have a Rowlet, and then you go Super Grow. You go ahead, search your deck, find yourself a Dartrix. Oh look, this Dartrix can also evolve. I will do that and go into a Decidueye. Bear in mind that it only states grass Pokemon as the basic. So this means that you can go Grubbin into a Lightning Charjabug and still find yourself a Lightning Vikavolt. As long as the basic is a grass type, you can do that evolving. And that will be relevant because Vikavolt's maybe one of those things you want to evolve up to. There's also a Serena from this set that you might want to evolve up to. And even stuff like Shiftry might have random, like, dark Nuzleafs and stuff. So I like that the stipulation is only on the basic grass Pokemon rather than anything else. Cheating out evolution's pretty reasonable. I think from what we've seen, like, Leafeon GX had some cheat evolutions, and that never really worked. The difference between this and Leafeon is that obviously you're a basic with the Rowlet, so it happens even faster than the Leafeon in many cases. You're not committing energy cards like the Leafeon had to. And also, you can just, like, Ace and Roll and pick this up later. I think the biggest issue, of course, you're weak to fire. So I think the Super Grow is a really cute thing, but the rest of the card doesn't inspire me enough to make me want to play him. His Peaceful Hurricane does 150 and heals 30. It's fine, but it's not the numbers that we're looking for. And the Tropical Hour GX does 200 for 3 grass, and if you have 3 additional energy, you shuffle all energy attached to each of your opponent's Pokemon into their deck. So it's similar to the Palkia GX, like reset their energy type effect. Again, just very expensive. Its damage output is a little bit below the bar. For a basic, it really has to inspire me to be weak to fire and still have a chance of being good. So Super Grow can make some kooky stuff happen, but I think you're still weak to fire. And Buzzmosa is perfect evidence that a card can be super insane and still weak to fire and won't see any play. And this isn't super insane like Buzzmosa, so yeah. We have Artwork Appreciation for a Dwebble. Can I make this any bigger? Yeah. Dwebble, because it's got a little Moltres in the back, and he's in awe of that, which is awesome. We have a Crustle, which has a Fury Cutter attack, which is flipping coins, which is terrible. We have a Lurantis, which can do 50 more if it has a fire attached, which is too expensive and not very good. We have that Stage 2 Serena, which I mentioned earlier when talking about the Super Grow on the Alolan Exeggutor Rowlet. And this is a Stage 2 that has the Queen Reward ability. Once during your turn, you may attach a Grass Energy from your discard pile to your active Pokemon. Now, this is essentially, like, we currently have a Blaziken from Dragon Majesty that is seeing no play, which is basically this ability, but for fire energies, and it sees no play. It's a Stage 2 version of Malamar, basically, but for grass attachments, which sounds really slow and not good, so probably not going to see play. We have a Camerupt. Always got to look at some of these fire Stage 1s, because they may end up being like the new Vileplume answer or whatnot. This one seems to be very slow, though, with a 4 energy attack cost to do Strong Flare for 150. Its numbers aren't great. It's outclassed by Arcanine. Arcanine's actually one of those Pokemon that has a 4 retreat cost, by the way. That's also a potential thing for the Pokemaniac, which I forgot to mention. I'm only just mentioning it now because Camerupt has a 4 retreat cost, and it just came up in my head. A Victini can use Victory Sign to search your deck for 2 basic energy and attach them to your bench Pokemon in any way that you like. It has that same thing as like the Shining Mew had, but you have to have the upfront cost of fire energy. The problem with this is that if you're using fire energies, you have all the energy acceleration in the world, and you'd rather be using Volcanion or Flareon GX or just using Welders. So probably not going to see play. We have a Stage 2 Talonflame. It's very, very weak. 150 to a bench on a Stage 2 is really awkward. It's really interesting that there was once, the Ordino, the Mega Ordino, was a deck that won Worlds doing 110 and then 50 to the bench on a Mega Evolution, which gave up 2 prizes. And now we're seeing that sort of come back, but on a Stage 2 is just terrible. And its attack cost isn't very cheap either. We have a Frostlass, which has the Breath of Grudge attack for a water. You get to put up to 7 damage counters on this Pokemon, and you do 20 for each damage counter you place in this way. So it's trying to do this like kooky thing where you can hit people for 140. Obviously, you're a water type, so you can, in theory, knock out a Reshizard. You can knock out one, and then, like, it's useless on your board. Unless you play, like, max potions and stuff. I think it's too cute. 140 is not good enough damage when you're not against red stuff, and I think it probably won't see play. It's similar to, like, the Crabominable that had to, like, heal its... Or, like, it did damage to itself based on the amount of damage it already had on it. So people tried to, like, build this Stage 1 deck that also had max potions and stuff. It's probably just too clunky. Like, there's the minor potential for this to be like a tech card, but a tech Stage 1 that also requires basic water, because if you were to use rainbows, you can only put 6 damage counters on yourself, which is only 120, so you'd have to combine that with like Choice Band. Then you're getting the realms of just being worse than like Slow King, so probably pretty poor in my book. We have a big 4 retreat cost Snover and Abomasnow line, so they're easy to get set up with the Pokemaniac engine. We have Super Speed Refrigeration, which does 70 for water DCE, and your opponent's active... if your opponent's active has a water energy attached to it, it's paralyzed. So not all that relevant. And then 140, yeah, very poor overall. We have a very interesting GX in Keldeo GX. So 170 hit points, weak to grass, basic, that has the ability Holy Heart. Prevents all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon GX or Pokemon EX. That's an insane ability. We've seen this on the good old Hooper, of course. And having it on a new, chunkier basic is such a headache to deal with. Like, you thought it was hard enough trying to tech non-GXs that can knock out a Hooper. Now you got to find non-GXs that can swing for 170 against stall decks. That's going to be rough, man. This is a really, really good card for stalling variants alone. Like, just for its raw ability baseline, it's already powerful. Yeah, this is an annoyance for sure. This is going to be a really annoying, like, jumpy, uppy, downy card with, like, max potions and stuff. So yeah, like that's a worry. We have Sonic Edge, which has, for 2 water and a colorless 110, damage isn't affected by any effects your opponent's active. And Resolution Sword GX does 50 times each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Sound familiar? That's because it's Dangerous Rogue. The attack costs are pretty expensive, I'm not going to lie. It's going to take a while to get this set up. We lose Aqua Patch, so that's a little bit awkward. I also think we actually lose Ace Runner. So you know when I was saying jumping up and down, it's probably not going to be doing that. It's just like max potioning is going to be annoying though. I think these attack costs are a little expensive, but its ability is so good that it may just be good enough anyway. It's like a build-around card, I would say. We have a Tapu Fini, which can be a counter to Ultra Beasts to some regard. The second attack is what we're interested in. Nature Wave, for 2 water and a colorless, does 100. But if your opponent has an Ultra Beast in play, you can use this attack for just 1 colorless. So, very splashable. If Ultra Beasts remain very relevant, which they very well might do, you can have water type coverage against them, which is pretty reasonable. There's the Blacephalon GX, obviously. There's Baby Blacephalon, which would also get knocked out by this very easily, just for a colorless. So it can be a nice tech card if Ultra Beasts remain relevant. And there's the new Naganadel GX, which might be a driving force for Ultra Beast players. So bear that in mind. And currently, as of right now, Ultra Space is like one of our, well, easily one of our best Pokemon search options that we have. When the rotation happens. So as of right now, Ultra Beasts get a huge power spike because they're one of the only archetypes that can actually search out their guys. So having a response to Ultra Beasts is pretty good. We have Stage 2 Magnezone, which has the ability Double Type, so it can be a Lightning and Metal when it's in play for 2 different weaknesses, I guess. And it comes with the Magnet Bolt attack. For a Lightning and 2 colors, you do 120 and put a trainer card from your discard pile into your hand. This can just be as simple as getting back more Electro Powers. This can be as simple as getting back more Rare Candies, more Ball Search. All that stuff is pretty reasonable, but its damage output is very low, and it's a Stage 2. Even though it's chunky, it's probably bad. We gain a Lightning-type version of Baby Buzzwole, which is, you know, already pricking some ears, I'm sure, because Baby Buzz was very, very good, and is very good. 120 hit point basic with 3 mirrors. It does, for Lightning, 30. If your opponent has exactly 3 prize cards remaining, you do 90 more damage. So people trying to play around the Sledgehammer turn can now get hit by the 3 mirrors attack. So essentially it's like making life difficult for people to jump around the prize race or whatever. Zapdos gains a new like 120 damage hitting Pokemon, which is really cool. You have 120 hit points yourself, so it's like a reasonable card for mirror matches. You can just easily knock out a Zapdos, and then they find it hard to knock you out. This actually reminds me of Raikou as well. Even just the base damage of 3 mirrors plus 1 Electro Power, then it's essentially the same as a Raikou in Mirror. So it's a good mirror card, that's for sure. Signal Beam for 2 Lightning does 50 and your opponent's active's confused. Like, sure, it's fine. It's like a bailout option if you're going to lose the game. Otherwise, you can go for Confuse them and force them to have stuff. But it's all about that first attack, really, which is very viable and strong. We gain this very awkward to deal with Arbok. It has 120 hit points as a Stage 1 that has the ability Pattern of Death. When this Pokemon gets knocked out by damage from your opponent's Pokemon, discard 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. Oh boy, handlock type decks are definitely ones that are scary to deal with, especially on a non-GX where you're going to force your opponent to try and knock them out as much as possible. This Arbok is very scary to deal with. Obviously, it's random cards. So your opponent, by not playing cards or by having large hand sizes, is the best way to play around this. But outside of that, like, you can just pick things at the right time and make life difficult for them, right? You can get rid of their backup energy cards, backup supporter cards, their next attacker. You can just start throwing things away with this Pattern of Death ability. We have Jesse and James on top of this, so there might be some hope for this sort of hand-locking Arbok archetype where you're not necessarily winning just by raw damage output. You're winning because your opponents just run out of the stuff they need to answer you in their hand, which is a pretty interesting concept that we haven't really seen before. So definitely something I want to play around. Its ability is bananas. I think this ability is so insane, and it will be a build-around archetype in my book, even though it comes with a 3 energy attack cost. I think if DCE stays in format, it will still be a build around. Otherwise, it won't. If it can actually attack itself, it's okay. Like, there's still the chance of trying to, like, Hitmonchan Arbok, stuff like that, as, like, a kooky sort of rogue or whatever. It might end up working out, but I think this needs DCE to still be good. It comes with Rocket Tail. For a Psychic and 2 colors, you do 50. If you have Jesse and James in your discard pile, this attack does 80 more damage. Naturally, you'll probably play at least 1 or 2 Jesse and James in this deck, and you just have even more reason to play a higher count because you're combining it with your own ability here. So, pretty synergistic style of archetype here we're sort of being force-fed, and even more so with the the wheezing that we get from this set. It has the White Hole ability. When you discard this card from your hand with the effect of Jesse and James, you may have your opponent discard a card from their hand. So they discard 2 from Jesse and James, and they discard an additional card, or 2 cards if you Jesse and James 2 Wheezings away. So this is definitely the sort of handlock archetype that we're talking about. You can see James in the background of this one, and then Jesse's in the background of the Arbok. Very thematic. And yeah, maybe there's this handlock deck that comes in. This also has tackle, so both this and the coughing both have tackle. So maybe you can add in Normalium Z, who knows. You attach a basic to like a coughing, and then you can evolve into wheezing and triple acceleration, and just out of nowhere you burst 200 damage. That would be hilarious. But usually you just play it, like you could play the wheezings without any coughings in the deck at all, and just have them as hand fodder. I'm not sure how strong this is. Like, it's extra disruption for the opponent, but it's extra jank in your own deck, so it's questionable to see if you'd play this. We have some 3 pixies here, starting off with the Uxie. It has the ability Territory of Secrets. If you have Azelf and Mesprit in play, apply weakness for each Pokemon, both yours and opponents, as ×4 instead. The last time we saw an ability like this, it was in a Stage 2 Vileplume, and that obviously saw no play. But putting it on a package that relies on 3 basics may be much stronger, because it can just be, like, it's 3 deck slots, whereas the Vileplume would take up a lot more, and rare candies, and you'd have to go about finding them, and then as soon as the Vileplume gets knocked out, your entire strategy dies, whereas if they just pick off an Azelf, an Uxie, or a Mesprit, you don't care, you can just stretcher it back. So there's the potential for this sort of baby toolbox, I want to call it, where you just play like basic Pokemon that can knock out popular weaknesses. You get these 3 on board, and you just go like, I will use Tackle for 10, but it's actually 40 because I have a choice band, but it's actually 160, like, for 1 energy. Like, and you can see what I mean, right? That's just with a 10 baseline damage attack. With choice band or whatnot. So you can see how it can scale up and get out of control if you play the right tech Pokemon in here. So, yeah, there's a chance. We've got to check how many relevant types you can hit for like low energy basics, basically. But this is much more appealing to me than the Vileplume ever was. We have a Mesprit, which can search your deck for 3 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. So, man, this tends even more so to this toolbox. This is so insane. Going, like, you have this Uxie package to make you do more damage, and then like turn 1 you just go Mesprit, I'll get the correct tech Pokemon out early, as well as like one of my other Uxie or Azelf pieces. That's a really good attack for this sort of archetype. That's pretty cool. And then the Azelf has Muse attack, the one that we currently have that does bench barrier. So he's the one that just takes up a space for the sake of helping your Uxie, but the Mesprit is very good for getting you set up. We have a new Point Bowl, which can do Last Scene, but it's really not better than poisoning stuff. We have a Druddigon, which can force your opponent to switch and then flip coins. Yeah, that's terrible. We have the main event. The Naganadel GX is a Stage 1, 210 hit point dragon type that has the ability Ultra Return. Once during your turn, you may discard an Ultra Beast from hand, then draw 3 cards. Now, surprisingly, well, to my surprise for sure, Salazzle isn't seeing a huge amount of play currently. But that might change post-rotation. And this might end up being a very good card because, of course, Zoroark rotates. So having a Stage 1 that can be pseudo-trade is very appealing. We also lose Rescue Stretcher, which is a little bit concerning. So you are limited to the amount of Ultra Returns you can use per game. It's not like Trade where you always have it live. your Naganadel drawing you more cards, but it's more akin to the Salazzle, where it's not always live, but when it is, you can like get a bigger payoff. So I guess the idea is you're going to have some sort of Ultra Beast toolbox where maybe it's just Nag, and like a 4/4 Naganadel line, and then you have like the tech Sledgehammer, the tech 3 Mirrors, the tech like Celesteela. You have all of these like tech one-of Ultra Beasts for those situations. Maybe some Rainbow Energies in there, stuff like that. And then you will use Ultra Space to get the ones that you don't need and just pitch them with Ultra Return. So it essentially turns your Ultra Space into a Heat Factory that also minuses 1 card from your deck, which is so insane. Like turning a Prism Star Stadium card into like a 4-of, plus you get to thin dead weight from your deck, is just so insane. Like that's actually incredible, whilst also like setting up your board with other stuff. So as a draw engine, this Naganadel is crazy good. And as mentioned, Ultra Beasts have like probably the best search remaining in Standard, because they can use treasures and they can use Ultra Space. So thick Naga, yes. I think like Beast Box, it might actually finally be time for Beast Box to be a thing. You don't actually need to play any other Pokemon in your deck outside of Ultra Beasts, because as soon as you get Naganadel, well, this Naganadel GX rolling, in theory, you'll be drawing more cards. So it might just be a 2-2 split of the Naga GXs, like the old and the new one, and you try and like bounce between those. So for his ability alone, I'm very enthusiastic, but he also comes with a couple of attacks. Venom Shot for a Psychic and 3 colorless, discards 2 energy from this Pokemon, and you do 170 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. That's insane. That's so good. Psychic plus triple acceleration that already discards itself anyway at the end of the turn, so your discard means nothing, and you just do 170 to whatever. You're just like, Dedenne, you're dead, man. I don't need Guzma, I just won the game off of this attack alone. This is so insane. It's also an Ultra Beast, so you can use Beast Ring to power him up as well if you want to go down that route. So, yeah, like, Naga is actually such an insane Pokemon. Like, this is super strong, super strong. Like, I'm like, give me Naganadel GX for Worlds. It's the new Zoro. Like, I'm rubbing my hands together. I think this is so insane. Venom Shoot is very, very powerful. Absolutely insane. Injection GX for Lightning Energy says add 1 card from your opponent's discard pile face down on to their prize cards. So it's really similar to the GX attack of Xurkitree GX, but it's from their discard pile. That you get the extra face down prize card from. So it's a nice denial option, I guess. I'm not sure if I'll be playing Lightning Energy in the deck. Maybe it'll only be like those rainbows and those Beast Energy itself that can make Injection GX live. But the GX attack is open, really. Stinger GX is pretty cool. The one on the old Naga to help you out against like mill and stuff, but it's not like mandatory, and there won't be like, it's not like an every game style GX attack, whereas this is essentially the same as taking a prize, right? So you're trying to re-skew the prize trade for the opponent. Like if they killed a Poipole early and then you just evolved into GXs like for the rest of the game, and you just Injection GX or whatever, you can skew the prize trade again against them, which is pretty cool. So I think it's gonna be pretty reasonable. Because then, like, you can have more Poipoles on the board, and you can have more non-GXs, like Sledgehammer Turn and stuff. You can try and, like, reset a Sledgehammer Turn, or reset a other one of those Power Spike GX turns. Power Spike Ultra Beast turns, which is pretty cool. Like, you could even reset, like, Beast Ring for yourself for a turn. Like, maybe they took a cheap prize just to get you off Beast Ring. Then you just go Injection GX, now hit me, and then I can Beast Ring again next turn. Like, there's some cool applications for this GX attack, and I think it's good. So yeah, it also has a 1 retreat cost. This card is like busted. This card's so good. I'm really excited to play with this card. We gain the Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno Tag Team GX. It's a 300 hit point colorless type. Excuse me. That has Lightning Weakness and a Fighting Resistance. Now, out the gate, Lightning Weakness is a little awkward. Let's all just put our hands up to that. Pikarom is still relevant. Jolteon is a relevant card as well, even in Zapdos. Might be adding in Jolteon recently. So definitely something to bear in mind. The weakness is awkward. But it has the Trinity Burn attack that for a Fire, Water, Lightning, and colorless cost does 210. 210 is a pretty golden number, as we all know. 240 with Choice Band is also a good baseline for knocking out some some tag teams, some of the earlier ones, I guess, like Pikarom exactly. But it means you can knock out like stage 2 GXs and stuff. Not that they're all that relevant, but you can knock out stage 1 GXs pretty easily with Trinity Burn, which is really nice. Like, it's a vanilla 210. You just could keep announcing that bad boy if you want to. And then you get the Sky Legend GX attack that, for a colorless, allows you to shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached into your deck. So straight out the gates, it means that, like, you can sponge with this guy and just be like, haha, I've gone away now. Like, I'm just out. You just wasted a turn of attacking me. Obviously, you waste a turn, like, attacking yourself, right? So it's kind of like just undoing a turn of damage or whatnot, but maybe it took them a couple turns to attack into you, and then you get a +1 on them because you have so much hit points. Something like that. That's at the baseline of being a colorless. But if you have that additional Fire, Water, Lightning attached, this does 110 to 3 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Huge sniping. Obviously, if this is ever going to be relevant, Mew is just here to say, no, you can't do those snipes. So I think that GX attack is questionable. There's obviously huge upside if people don't play Mew for whatever reason. But I think with the... there's already enough reason for people to play Mew because of this guy, the Venom Shoot. And there's already, like, currently enough reason in format with, like, Pikarom and stuff. So I think Mew's just going to be a good card that stays around, which makes me think Sky Legend is not going to be all that great. But what I do like is, like, the way you power this up is probably with Porygon Z. That's, like, the main way I'm looking at it. Unless you want to do some, like, charging ups with Naganadel and have, like, E-switch shenanigans, stuff like that. But I think... you can power this up in a couple kooky ways, and then do like a big Trinity Burn, and then like you take 2 prizes, they hit into you, then you Sky Legend GX so that they've undone all that pressure, and then you just send them like a non-GX into the active, which is pretty good. It's like a good uptrade while your opponent sort of loses a lot of tempo at the same time. So build around wise, probably not worth, but it has some applications. Like, it has to be a very situational deck to make this attack cost work, right? So you probably have to build around this if you want it to work. And potentially it will if Trinity Burns 210 is a relevant enough number. But if there are more tag teams that just have more healing, like we've seen Reshizard play Acerola and Max Potion this weekend. We saw Miltank being thrown into tag team decks. Like, if that's going to be the case, this 210 just isn't good enough. So it may just fall short of the mark. It may just be a collector card more than anything else. We have a really fun Licky Licky, which has the Lick Lick Dance attack for 3 colorless or triple acceleration energy. You get to discard a random card from your opponent's hand, the top of their deck, and an energy from your opponent's active. That's super annoying, man. That's just so annoying. 1 random from hand, 1 random from deck, and their energy. It's like a Crushing Hammer hitting heads whilst also getting 2 mills at the same time. So maybe there's some weird little funky Licky Licky package where you can somehow recycle triple accelerations with like Orangaroo or something like that, but ultimately probably just meme potential. Artwork Appreciation Award goes to this Hoot Hoot, who's scared of the Zapdos out here. He has the Air Slash attack, so he can actually copy... or he could take advantage of that Flyarium Z, or whatever it's called. The Noctowl doesn't do too much. This Ordino, man. This Ordino is so cool. It has the ability Hearing. Once during a turn, when this is your active, you may draw a card. That effect is really strong. We saw this on a Slurpuff that was a stage 1. And once during a turn, you could just draw a card off the Slurpuff. But when the Slurpuff was active, you could draw 2. So the Slurpuff was slightly stronger, but the payoff was that it was a stage 1. Ordino is a 1 retreat cost, basic, that can just get you extra hand advantage. Now, we have Jirachi, and Jirachi's probably always just stronger than Ordino. But this ability is, like, fine. Just, like, getting an extra card is, like, pretty cool, pretty good. So I wouldn't write off Ordino. Like, hand advantage is so sick, but... it may just be for decks that are like not super trainer focused, if that makes sense. There's like that Chandelure deck from GG End, which wants to absolutely pack its deck with Pokemon, right? And only will play like a small amount of Ball Search and a small amount of like candies and stuff. So you'll play like 4 Ordino and 4 Jirachi in your deck. So now you can have 8 good starts that help you draw additional cards, right? So I think Ordino might find his home in some like wacky decks, but overall the 4 Jirachi go in first, and then Ordino is like an additional card draw that's pretty random and good. Then we have a new Silvally, a non-GX Silvally, 130 hit points, has the Avengeful Heart attack for 30, 50 more for each prize card your opponent took on their last turn. So, you know, the most reasonable payoff is like a tag team dies and you can hit them back for 180 for 2 colorless. That's not a very good payoff. That's not worth playing a random stage 1 that's useless for, like, for the rest of the game. An Air Slash is, again, that attack that is a keyword. You can now use the GX attack that allows you to do 180, and you're not going to get damaged by anything next turn or hit by any effects. But I think it's not really a build around. Like, it's not a big enough selling point for that to be good. So the mini set there, that wraps it all up. I think the Jesse and James stuff is very cool. I think both the U-turn board and the Recycle Energy are very strong. I think the biggest thing I'm excited about is the Naga GX, if you could tell. That's the most exciting thing. I think that kind of like little Uxie Mesprit Azelf package is worth looking into to see if there are enough like different Pokemon that can just hit a good number for 1 energy attachment to just cheese out decks. The Keldeo is going to be annoying, and I think the Alolan Exeggutor is probably going to flop. So that's my initial thoughts on SM10b Sky Legend. Sorry I had to take a few pauses to take a drink. I talk way more than I anticipated, and this was a longer video than I thought it would be as well, because I've gone into a tangent. I've started to get worlds in the back of my mind, and it's really exciting me already. So hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I'll be getting onto Unified Minds once it all comes out, and then we can have a full review of the rotation and all that good stuff as well. So lots of exciting stuff coming to the channel, and plenty more Unbroken Bond stuff to come as well. So hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you tomorrow.